where did we come up with this notion, or how did the experts come up with the notion that different means essentially broken and therefore you need to be fixed? Back in the 70s and 60s and 70s when I grew up, tomboys were everywhere, running wild, running free, and it was no big deal. Nobody made a fuss. For example, I remember like my second grade teacher on one of the progress reports, she wrote something about, in her own words, she wrote that I was highly amused with some of the boy antics in the classroom. And she just said that as an observation. That was it. It was no big deal, not unusual at all, just an observation. There is no suggestion that something needed to be done. And that's the way it was. It was truly no big deal to be a tomboy. The thing about today, quite different, huh? Why did things change? Let's get into it. Okay, as I mentioned, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and what is now called free-range kids, it was completely normal. I mean, we spent all day, or at least all our free time, obviously not during school or anything, but all our free time was spent in running around in the woods, and I lived by a river, so we played at the river too. We built tree forts, all that kind of stuff, all day long. Till our mom said, could hear our moms calling us home for dinner, that kind of stuff. And of course, when you're engaged in tromping through the woods or splashing in the water or building tree forts, there's no place really for girly girl kind of stuff, right? So it's quite normal to, have short hair. I still have short hair. I just prefer it that way. But yeah, short hair, t-shirt, cutoffs, the whole thing, whole 9 yards. Hand-me-downs from your older brother. Like when I was learning how to skate, I had double blade skates, and when I graduated from those, I've got my first pair of real skates. It was hand-me-downs from my brother. They were actually hockey skates, and I didn't care if they were boy skates or not. I just wanted to skate like the grown-ups, So that was quite common, very, very common. And so back then, hand-me-downs, whatever, it was no big deal. And being a tomboy was no big deal. Nobody was hung up on externals, thinking about, what does it mean if she's doing this or wearing that? And certainly nobody would have imagined that such a situation, tomboys would warrant some kind of therapy or anything like that. And as a matter of fact, I don't know, perhaps I was, a bit of an exception, or my situation was a bit of an exception, but I distinctly remember teachers, recognizing that I was different, and they encouraged that. They said, you march to your own drum. That's great. Keep it up. Don't fall to peer pressure and all that kind of stuff. But they were very positive about, being different than all the other kids or whatever, and it was fine. Nobody planted any crazy ideas in anybody's heads about, if you're this, then that means something's wrong with you. We weren't seen as a problem that needed to be fixed. But fast forward to today and look where we're at now, the situation is very different. Tomboys just aren't let alone anymore. It seems like there's always somebody that's hung up on stereotypes, which is kind of ironic because usually people think about the old days in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and oh, there's stereotypes, and there, you know, we needed to break those stereotypes. But now, if you think about it, there's a lot of, it seems like there's a lot more attention paid to stereotypes. And some people just seem to want to meddle if you don't conform to a certain stereotype. I don't get that. I really don't get that. And they even try to plant ideas in, especially in kids' heads, that, you know, oh, if you're this way, because you're different, you're a problem that needs to be fixed. I mean, that's just nonsense in my view. Why would you immediately go there, you know? Well, you know, change is one thing, but, you know, where did we come up with this notion, or how did the experts come up with the notion that different means essentially broken and therefore you need to be fixed? That's crazy. That's not how I grew up, and I'm glad. I am so glad that I grew up when I did and not nowadays, because who knows what would have happened, you know, if they had that kind of attitude back then. So, you know, it was wonderful that, you know, teachers and parents and society as a whole, just, they let tomboys be tomboys. Okay, there was no overanalyzing about whatever. There was no reading into situations. They just let kids be kids. So, what happened? You know, how or why did we lose this common sense attitude? It just feels like we've lost that chill of, you know, live and let live, let people be how they want to be you, instead of trying to force somebody into some kind of stereotype. You're behaving this way, therefore, since your brain and your body, quote unquote, don't match, that means we gotta fix things. When it's essentially, people are getting hung up because of nonconformity to arbitrary societal externals, and make sense of it. I can't. So, you know, does anybody else think that we're too hung up on this? What do you think? Were you a tomboy? Or maybe did you know a tomboy? How was it? What was your experience? What do you think? So let's, if you have anything to say, you know, drop a line in the comments and let's discuss it. And I think it's actually quite important for society to come back to common sense. But anyways, that's what I thought, or that's what my thoughts are. So what are your thoughts? Were you a tomboy? Or perhaps you knew a tomboy? What do you think about all this stuff that's going on right now? Drop a line in the comments. Let's have a discussion about this. I think it's important for society. Let's get back to live and let live instead of trying to force our ideals on someone else. So, that's my thoughts. What are your thoughts? Let me know. And if you liked this video, if it gave you something to think about, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with a friend maybe. And I'll see you in the comments. And if not, I'll see you in the next video. Bye. See all that stuff there, that is your friend, poison ivy. So if you're walking in the woods and you want to think about going off the path, you need to know what to look out for.